on head-to-head. You are the majority leader in the Kenyan National Assembly. You are a close ally and supporter of President William Ruto, who is super unpopular right now because he and you and your party haven't delivered for the people of Kenya. Your 2022 election manifesto made 281 promises. Can you tell our audience tonight how many of those have been fulfilled over the last 2.5 years?
True, as you say. The perception out there is that the administration is quite unpopular, nothing uncharacteristic of any administration 2 years after an election, especially an administration that came into office in the backdrop of a very dilapidated economy with very many promises, as you said, but I can assure you that will change in due course. The implementation of a manifesto is page by page, chapter after chapter.
But you haven't implemented it. That's the problem.
It is being implemented.
How many of the 281 promises have been implemented?
I'll not give you a straight answer of 2 or 10 or 200, but I'll tell you.
You're the first politician who said to me, I will not give you a straight answer, just bluntly. I can give you an answer. I've got the answer. It's 14 out of 281 promises. That means 95% of your promises have not been met 2.5 years in.
That is your number, Mehdi, not my number.
It's not my number. It's the number of Mizalendo, a non-partisan parliamentary monitoring organization in Kenya that tracks all parties. They're saying 14 out of 281. I mean, we can run through some of them. President Ruto said he would give free internet and phone calls to Kenyans. He hasn't. He said he would start an inquiry into cronyism. He has not. He said he would ratify the International Convention Against Enforced Disappearances. He has not. I could go on and on. Kenyans are frustrated because they were lied to during the election campaign.
Well, Mehdi, as I told you, that is the perspective of Mzalendo. And that is their target.
Well, has he ratified the International Convention Against Enforced Disappearances?
We have ratified very many international conventions.
But has he ratified the International Convention Against He said he would do it straight as he comes to power. It's been 2.5 years. He could do it with a stroke of his pen. Why has he not done it?
He is yet to ratify, but it is work in progress. Was there a timeline for its ratification, according to Mzalendo?
Many things had timelines on.
Was there a timeline?
He said he would do.
No timeline.
He said he would do a public inquiry into cronyism within 30 days. Has he done it?
Public inquiry?
Yeah, a public inquiry to establish the extent of cronyism and state capture and make recommendations. Page 61 of your manifesto. Has he done it? It's been more than 30 days. It's been 2.5 years.
I'll tell you, Mehdi, if you read the NADCO report, there are recommendations on what is to be done on state cronyism, on state capture, on extrajudicial killings. That is captured in the NADCO report.
But you haven't done what the manifesto called for on multiple things. And look, you know, and you admitted, to be fair, that people are unhappy. There's a perception of the government that's unpopular. Kenyans have been most upset about the cost of living. And yet, when thousands of young Kenyans took to the streets in protest of your government last year, the finance bill, your government opened fire on them, killed them, forcibly abducted and disappeared them. How do you justify such a violent crackdown on your own citizens in a democracy?
First, let me say this, Mehdi. As you said, because you never allowed me to answer the question on the promises kept. I told you the manifesto is being implemented chapter after chapter, right from housing to the cost of living that you're speaking about. Because, of course, you cannot judge what was to be done in 5 years, in a short 2 years.
Well, some of them you said you would do in 30 days, and you haven't. But just deal with the violence. How do you justify what happened last summer in Kenya?
Now I'm coming to that. You said the cost of living. I can tell you what we've done with the cost of living, from the subsidizing of production rather than subsidizing consumption, as we promised in our campaigns. You remember the first demonstrations after the elections in 2023 were about the cost of living.
Which also were greeted with violence from the state.
And unfortunately, all demonstrations end up with deaths, which is a very unfortunate incident. And it is not true that people demonstrate and you open fire. It is just the nature of what happens with our demonstrations, that they turn violent, and the police have to intervene. And let me say that at this point, it's not just unfortunate. We all regret the loss of life during the 2022 demonstrations and even the demonstrations of June last year. Unfortunate that lives had to be lost, but it was not that fire was opened on young.
Yeah, the way you talk, lives had to be lost. No, lives were taken. right? People were shot in the head.
No life ought to have been lost, and nobody can justify the loss of life anywhere in the world out of demonstrations
According to a Reuters investigation, 19-year-old Charles Owino went to a protest, was killed with a gunshot to the head. The police recorded his death as a road accident. 21-year-old Shaquille Obienge, he died the same day as Owino, also shot in the neck. Police recorded his death as a road accident. If these deaths are so regrettable, why is the Kenyan police covering them up?
Fortunately, Mehdi, we have a very robust constitution in the country, the best constitution in sub-Saharan Africa. This constitution has very good and clear safeguards that make sure that everybody is held to account for your actions, including the police. You've mentioned 2 or 3 people. I think from IPOA's records, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, from their records, they have recorded about 60 deaths from last year's demonstrations. And there are some, I think about 30-something that are still under investigation. They have dismissed some after close the files after investigation. Therefore, I can assure you, the police may even somebody within the police force may desire to cover up.
Can you tell our audience tonight, how many Kenyan police officers
in the country will not allow you to cover up?
You say that, this is great rhetoric. How many police officers in Kenya have been prosecuted for their role in the violence in 2023 or 2024? Can you tell us how many?
I'll tell you from the last year's demonstrations, 3 are already in court.
3 police officers have been prosecuted?
3 are being prosecuted.
Are being prosecuted, but none have been prosecuted.
Another 34 cases. Before you prosecute somebody, you have got to investigate.
So
you have to
this is what Human Rights Watch said last year. Bodies of people showing signs of torture continue to turn up in rivers, forests, quarries, mortuaries. The authorities have yet to investigate or prosecute anyone for these crimes. Kenya has a history of police brutality and lack of accountability for serious abuse.
So you want
That's Human Rights Watch.
You want to believe what Human Rights Watch said, not what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
I'm going to believe a human rights group over a politician who started by saying, I won't give you straight answers.
It is their take, Mehdi. It is their take. And I didn't come here to give their take. I came here to give my take and the perspective.
So they're wrong, you think? The police officers are being held to account?
They're wrong because the police officers must be held to account.
But they haven't been.
And that is why we have institutions that will hold them to account.
So what you said today about the deaths sounded good. You said it's regrettable, there should be no loss of life. That's what you say here. What you say in Kenya is a little bit different. This is what you said in December about the abductions of young people. You said that they're a way for people to basically con the system. You said these people, quote, they're not really abducted, you said, quote, they're locking themselves in Airbnbs with their girlfriends and hiding. Are you saying that all these abductions, Kenyan parents crying over missing children, bodies turning up in rivers, that's people pretending, hiding with their girlfriends in an Airbnb? Do you understand how offensive that sounds?
Mehdi, I was speaking in Bungoma County. And the context was the clamor for, there was the misconception that every other abduction in the country was being perpetuated by security agencies. But what I said is that we have laws in the country that people who are construed to have broken the law in terms of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, if they are found culpable, the DCI or the police should and must arrest them and take them before courts of law, because that is what they deserve. And the police and security agencies have no business abducting anybody, and nobody should be abducted.
But they are abducting people.
By security agencies.
But they are abducting.
Allow me to make my point because you asked me a question. And it is in that context then that I said, and again, it is not all cases, Mehdi, that were out of abductions or what was construed to be abductions. And let me tell you, there were cases where people, somebody was holed up in an Airbnb, but reported himself as abducted.
But for you as a leading politician in the country, where people are being disappeared in a democracy in 2024, 2025, it seems a strange thing to focus on, not the kids whose bodies are being found in rivers and forests and warehouses with gunshot wounds to the head and the neck. And instead of focusing on that, you focus on one case of somebody in an Airbnb. Seems strange.
Mehdi, I also say there are cases of political conspiracies where people...
Can we talk about the cases that are open and shut, police, intelligence services abducting kids? You accept that happens in your country? Your government and your intelligence services have abducted innocent people. You accept that?
It has been claimed. Those are matters.
Not claimed, it's happened.
It has been claimed.
You don't accept it's happened?
I do not believe they are enforced disappearances perpetuated by the state in Kenya, not in this day and age. We have an administration which, for the first time, none other than the president himself committed that never again will Kenyans have to disappear and you fish their bodies out of River Yala or River Tana like happened some time back. And therefore, why I say they are claims,
but it's
because they are claims that are being investigated.
They're not claims. Let me give you a fact. Can I give you a fact?
Unless you give me fact.
I'm going to give you a fact right now, because the audience around the world watching may not know this. The Attorney General of Kenya, his son was abducted, literally a serving member of the government. His son was taken. How did he get him released? Can you tell our audience?
The Attorney General of Kenya is called Dorcas Oduor.
Justin Muturi, the former Attorney General,
he's moved on. Abducted. The person who has alleged that his son was abducted is the former Attorney General, Justin Muturi. And
how did he get his son released?
And I'll tell you again, I have read from the media, heard Justin Muturi what he said, just as you heard it. It is an allegation by Justin Muturi, somebody who has...
Mr. Muturi says he went to the president and said, President Ruto, the intelligence service have taken my son. President Ruto called the head of your intelligence service and his son was released.
Have you heard Mehdi from President Ruto on the same? Have you heard from the director of intelligence?
You tell me what's President Ruto's place. He denied it?
Have you heard from him?
No, I don't live in Kenya. You're the expert. Has President Ruto denied that?
So why don't you allow then me to tell you my
Please
take?
do.
Because that's your take.
Please.
From what has been reported.
That's not my take. I'm reporting a member of your government. This is
You're
amazing. I'm quoting a member of your government, not the opposition, a member of your government who you're calling a liar because he says his son was abducted.
That's why